A woman kneels on a cold stone floor, her hair unbound, weeping over the dust-covered feet of a rabbi. But if you strip away the centuries of medieval folklore and look at the actual Greek text, the weeping prostitute vanishes. John runs faster. Peter goes inside first. They duck into the dark cavern. They feel the damp, cold air of the cave. They see the linen wrappings lying flat on the stone slab. They see the face cloth folded neatly by itself. And then, they leave. The text in John chapter 20 says it with chilling brevity. Then the disciples went back to their homes. They see the empty grave. They process the missing body. And they go back into hiding. But Mary stays. She stands outside the tomb in the quiet morning light. She weeps. The grief finally breaks her open. She leans down and looks into the dark cavern one more time. Two figures in white sit on the cold slab where the body had been. They ask why she is crying. She gives the exact same desperate answer. Someone stole the body. She turns around. Another figure stands behind her in the garden. He asks the same question. She thinks he is the caretaker. She begs him for the location of the corpse so she can carry it away herself. And then, the man speaks her name, Mary. The world shifts on its axis. He is alive. He gives her a direct, urgent command. Mary is not the tragic sinner of church legend. She is the financial architect of the Jesus movement. She is the anchor of the resurrection, and that command hinges on a single Greek verb that the institutional church has been trying to ignore for 2,000 years. Jesus looks at a woman with zero legal standing in a first-century court and gives her the most critical assignment in the history of the cosmos. He tells her to go find the brothers. He gives her a specific theological message about his impending ascension to the Father. And what happens next is often obscured by the polite, sanitized language of our modern English translations. If you read John chapter 20, verse 18 inches, English, it sounds soft. Most Bibles say something like, Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples. Or simply, Mary went and told them. It sounds as though she is casually passing along an interesting piece of good news. But the Greek text uses a very specific, heavily loaded verb. The word is the Greek apangelo. It appears exactly 45 times in the New Testament. It is built from two roots, apo, meaning from, and angelo, meaning to proclaim or deliver a message. But in the ancient Mediterranean world, apangelo was not a word you used for casual conversation or neighborhood gossip. It was a formal, technical term. It was the word used to describe a royal herald carrying a binding decree from a king. The real question of her life is not what she repented from. It is this: why was she the only one who did not run? It was the verb used when a military commander returned from the battlefield to formally declare a victory to the emperor. It carries the massive weight of authorized, official proclamation. It is the exact same word the Apostle John uses decades later to establish his own spiritual authority. In 1 John 1 gegen 2, writing, "We have seen it, and testify to it, and apangelo, to you, the eternal life." Jesus did not just tell Mary to go chat with her friends. Think about the implications of that word echoing in the air. As her knuckles hit the heavy wooden door of the locked room, the scent of burial spices still lingering on her clothes. In first-century Jewish and Roman culture, a woman's testimony was considered inherently unreliable. Her voice was legally inadmissible in a court of law. Rabbinic traditions of the era often debated whether women should even be taught the text at all. If you were a first-century writer trying to fabricate a new religion, you would never invent this detail. You would never make a woman the primary, foundational witness to your most spectacular claim. It would be intellectual suicide. And yet, the author of life deliberately bypasses every patriarchal structure of the ancient world. Mary is not merely a messenger, and the answer changes how you view the entire foundation of the Christian faith. To feel the weight of this story, she is the prototype for the entire Christian mission. She holds the office of apangelo before Peter ever preaches a sermon, before Paul ever writes a single letter, before the early church ever breaks bread together. She is the authorized herald of the victory over death. But delivering a royal proclamation is one thing. Getting terrified men hiding in a dark room to actually listen to a woman's voice is something else entirely. She runs back through the narrow, winding streets of Jerusalem. Her lungs burn. Her sandals slap against the rough paving stones. The sun is fully up now, blinding and white, burning away the gray chill of the morning. She reaches the heavy wooden door of the upper room. She pounds her fists against the wood. She can hear the nervous, frantic shuffling inside. The door cracks open, and she steps into the shadows. She breathes in the stale, suffocating air of the locked room. It smells of unwashed bodies, dying oil lamps, and the cold sweat of men who have not slept in 3 days. The men sit in the corners. Their eyes are sunken. Their hands are empty. She stands before them, the dust of the empty grave still clinging to her hem. She looks at Peter. She looks at John. She looks at the men who fled the garden, the men who denied the name, the men who locked the door to save their own skin. You cannot start at the empty tomb. You have to step back into the heat of first-century Palestine. And she delivers the Apangelo. I have seen the Lord. She does not apologize for her gender. She does not ask for the rabbi's permission to speak. She does not soften the blow of her own courage to protect their shattered, fragile egos. This is not a hysterical woman clinging to a ghost story. This is the fortress holding the ground the men abandoned. But the men do what terrified men in power have done for millennia. They dismiss the woman to protect their own reality. The Gospel of Luke captures their immediate, visceral rejection in chapter 24. These words seem to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. The Greek word translated idle tale is leros. In first-century medical texts, leros describes the delirious, feverish babbling of a sick mind. It is nonsense. It is medical slang for a psychotic break. The men do not just disbelieve her. They diagnose her. They look at the first commissioned herald of the risen Christ, the woman who funded their meals for 3 years, and they call her crazy. They attempt to silence the tower. But heaven does not ask for the validation of the patriarchy. Jesus could have appeared to the 12. He could have materialized inside that locked room at the exact moment he left the grave. He could have bypassed the cemetery altogether. You have to walk into a bustling, wealthy fishing town on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee, walked straight into the high priest's courtyard, and demanded an audience with the men who signed his death warrant. He bypassed all of it. He bypassed the religious elite. He bypassed the political power brokers. He bypassed his own hand-picked inner circle. He chose the quiet of a garden. He chose the chill of the morning. He chose her. He trusted the genesis of a new creation to a woman the empire deemed entirely unreliable. He anchored the most cosmic, universe-altering news in human history to the voice of a single female patron from Magdala. But that morning in the locked room was only the beginning of her fight to be heard. Because the attempt to discredit Mary did not end with the frightened apostles in Jerusalem, the men in the upper room call her crazy. The medieval bishops rewrite her history. The Renaissance artists paint her weeping and exposed. The popes blend her identity with nameless sinners. They take the fortress and reduce her to a cautionary tale. They smell the heavy incense in their cathedrals and draft new theology. They scrape their iron pens across parchment to erase her leadership. They construct a narrative of sexual repentance to silence her authority. But the oldest records hold the line. You can hear the sound of merchants bartering in Greek and Aramaic, the smell of salted fish baking in the sun. In the 3rd century, a theologian named Hippolytus of Rome writes down the truth. He gives her a specific, staggering title. Centuries later, Thomas Aquinas echoes the exact same phrase, Apostolorum Apostola, the apostle to the apostles. Let that title sink in. An apostle is a delegate sent with a commission. She receives the first commission. An apostle carries the authority of a king. She carries the first royal decree. An apostle anchors the faith. She anchors the resurrection. Look at the contrast. Peter denies Jesus 3 times by a charcoal fire. He feels the heat of the flames on his face and swears he never knew the rabbi. He protects his own skin. Mary stands by the splintered wood of the cross. She smells the copper scent of blood. She watches the execution to the bitter end. Yet institutional history elevates Peter to a throne and strips Mary of her dignity. Why? Because a woman with money, independence, and a direct divine commission threatens the established order. The Roman patriarchal system could not handle a female patron holding the keys to the resurrection. So they changed her story. They swapped the tower for a prostitute. They swapped the herald for a hysterical weeper. But the text refuses to forget her. The sight of Roman coins changing hands at the port. This is Magdalene. In the ancient world, names were not just labels. They were coordinates. The men who write the New Testament epistles have to hear the gospel from her first. Peter preaches to thousands at Pentecost, but Mary preaches to Peter. John writes a cosmic gospel, but Mary gives John the ending. James leads the church in Jerusalem, but Mary leads James out of his locked room. She is not a supporting character in a male-dominated narrative. She is the singular bridge between the death of the old world and the birth of the new one. Without her money, the disciples starve in Galilee. Without her witness, the crucifixion has no faithful observer. Without her courage, the empty tomb is just a missing body. The 12 build the early church, but the tower builds the 12. Jesus does not establish his kingdom on the backs of perfect, fearless men. He builds it on the unwavering loyalty of a woman who refused to run away. But this history is not just an academic correction. The title matters. The true story matters. Because what Jesus did in that garden outside Jerusalem is not trapped in the first century. The voice that called her name in the dawn light is still speaking. And the way heaven treated Mary changes exactly how God looks at you right now. They told society exactly who you belonged to and where you ranked. If you were a man, you were identified by your father. She funded the movement from her heavy purse of silver, and the bread was bought. She followed the rabbi out of Galilee, and the ministry survived. She stood her ground at the cross while the men scattered, and the dying king did not die alone. She tracked the body to the stone cave in the fading light, and the burial was witnessed. She carried bitter spices through the dark Sunday streets, and the empty grave was found. She stayed in the garden weeping while the apostles hid and the resurrected Christ spoke. She carried a royal decree to a locked room of terrified men, and the Christian mission was born. One woman, one fortress. But here's the part I keep coming back to. For 1,500 years, the powerful tried to erase her. A pope stood under the stone arches of a Roman basilica and rewrote her into a cautionary tale. The institutions built their cathedrals on the men who ran away, while painting the woman who stayed as a weeping sinner on a cold floor. And yet, the text refuses to let her go. Her name still stands as a watchtower that religious arrogance could not pull down. Simon, son of Jonah. James, son of Zebedee. If you were a woman, the rules were even stricter. You were identified by the men who covered you. If you are in a season where your voice is being dismissed, where the structures around you have labeled you unreliable, or where your fierce loyalty has been met with locked doors and fragile egos, Mary of Magdala is a place to sit. Look at the garden. Heaven does not require the validation of the religious elite to issue a commission. Your calling is not determined by the people trying to silence you. It is determined by the voice in the dark that speaks your name. He entrusts the heaviest, a most beautiful realities, to those who simply refuse to walk away when the sun goes down. If this opens something up for you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who has been sidelined and needs to remember who they really are. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who bypassed the powerful to entrust a cosmic victory to a grieving woman walk with you through your own garden and give you the courage to deliver the message even when the room refuses to listen. The air in the room is thick with the scent of crushed nard and the heavy silence of judgment. A husband, a brother, a son, Mary, the mother of James, Mary, the wife of Clopas, Mary, the sister of Lazarus. You did not exist in the public record without a male anchor, but Mary of Magdala breaks the pattern. She stands completely alone in the text. No husband is named. No father is claimed. No brother is mentioned. She is an independent woman operating in a patriarchal world, tethered only to her geography. She is Mary of Magdala, but there is a detail hiding in plain sight, right there in her name. That changes the picture even further, because in the ancient Near East, the name of that town was not just a geographic marker. It was a description, and to understand, the kind of woman who would eventually stand her ground at a Roman execution, you have to look at the Aramaic root of the name she carried. On a September morning in the year 591, Pope Gregory the Great stood beneath the stone arches of the Basilica of San Clemente in Rome and delivered a sermon that rewrote history. He looked out at the congregation and officially collapsed three distinct women from the Gospels into one composite character. She whom Luke calls the sinful woman, he declared, his voice echoing off the marble floors. We believe to be the Mary, from whom 7 devils were ejected. You have seen this painting hanging in museums. You have probably heard this sermon. She is the repentant prostitute, with those words, ink dried on vellum. And the Western Church took an independent, wealthy backer of the Jesus movement and reduced her to a weeping penitent. They needed a cautionary tale of rescued purity. So they erased a pillar of early Christian leadership. But if you ignore the papal decrees of the Middle Ages and return to the first century text, a completely different woman emerges. You find her introduced in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 8, associated with a prosperous fishing town on the western edge of the Sea of Galilee. And the name of that town is the key to her actual identity. The name Magdala is anchored in the Hebrew and Aramaic noun Migdal. Migdal literally translates to tower or fortress. Across the ancient Near East, it was used to describe massive stone watchtowers jutting into the Judean sky, structures built into city walls for military defense, high vantage points designed to withstand a brutal siege. The word implies unshakable strength. It describes a structure that holds its ground when everything else around it collapses. It is the exact same word the writer of Proverbs uses in chapter 18, verse 10, declaring, "The name of the Lord is a strong Migdal. The righteous run to it and are safe." The broken woman of the streets, who finally found grace. The famous sinner who washed the feet of Jesus with her tears. Some of the earliest scholars of the text, like Jerome in the 4th century, recognized that for Mary, this was not merely a geographic coordinate. They argued that Magdalene was an honorific title, likely given to her by Jesus himself. Just as Jesus looked at a volatile fisherman named Simon and named him Peter, the Rock, he looked at this fiercely loyal woman and named her the Fortress. Mary is not the fragile, weeping sinner of medieval art. She is Mary the Tower. She is a woman of immense fortitude, someone who had survived her own profound internal war. Luke's Gospel notes that she had been healed of 7 demons, a 1st century cultural idiom not for sexual impurity, as later tradition claimed, but for severe, agonizing trauma or illness. She had known the darkest torment the human mind and body could endure, and she had come out the other side. She was a woman rebuilt from the ruins. But how does a woman known as a fortress, a woman with no husband to govern her status or her bank account, actually operate within the Jesus movement? The detail that changes everything is hiding in a single live, easily overlooked financial ledger in the Gospel of Luke. But there is a fatal problem with this scene. It is a fabrication. Not just the details of the room, the identity of the woman herself. Jesus walks from village to village. The crowds press in. The 12 walk beside him. The dust of Galilee coats their sandals. The sun bakes the rocky hills. They are miles from home. They need food. They need shelter. They need supplies. A traveling rabbi with a massive entourage is a logistical nightmare. It costs money. Peter is a fisherman with an empty net. Matthew left his tax booth behind. James and John walked away from their father's boats. The men have no income. The men have empty pockets, but the movement does not starve. The bills get paid. The bread is bought. Luke records exactly how in chapter 8. He names 3 women, Mary called Magdalene, Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward, Susanna. He adds that there were many others. And then he drops a financial ledger directly into the narrative. These women were providing for them out of their own resources. Mary holds the purse strings. She manages the logistics. She walks into the ancient markets. She feels the heavy weight of the silver coins in her pouch. She smells the baked fish and fresh bread. She pays the merchants. She secures the lodging when the sky turns dark and the temperatures drop. She funds the ministry out of her own private wealth. This breaks every social rule of the Roman Empire. A rabbi traveling with an entourage of women is scandalous. For roughly 1,500 years, a massive portion of the Christian world has taken three distinct, entirely separate women from the gospel accounts and collapsed them. A rabbi financially sustained by independent women is unthinkable. But Jesus does not flinch. He accepts her patronage. He elevates her standing. The women are not the background characters of the story. They are the infrastructure. Mary is not a broken charity case, begging for a seat at the table. She is the financial engine keeping the movement alive. She marches with them. She funds the boats. She buys the oil for the lamps. She listens to the parables on the grassy hillsides. She watches the lepers walk away clean. She sees the dead wake up. She is there for every triumph in the north. But the glory days do not last. The ministry pivots south. They walk toward Jerusalem. The political temperature rises. The religious leaders plot in the shadows. The Roman spears catch the afternoon sunlight outside the temple. The smell of Passover lamb fills the narrow, crowded streets. The air grows thick with danger. The 12 men begin to argue about power. Judas calculates a violent exit. Peter begins to sweat. But the tower holds her ground. The movement walks right into a Friday that will shatter the world. And when the violence finally erupts in the garden, the men make a devastating choice. We are often taught that proximity to greatness guarantees courage. We assume that watching miracles for 3 years inoculates a person against fear into a single, tragic figure. The anonymous weeping sinner of Luke chapter 7, Mary of Bethany, the quiet sister of Martha, and Mary of Magdala. But the human nervous system does not care about theology when a Roman cohort shows up in the dark with torches and drawn swords. The gospel accounts do not hide the brutal reality of the inner circle's failure. The men who promised their lives, the men who aggressively argued about sitting at his right and left hand in the kingdom, scatter into the olive trees. They calculate the political risk of being associated with a condemned enemy of the state, and they hide behind locked doors. This is not a failure of belief. It is a failure of nerve. To fully understand the magnitude of the Friday fracture, you must understand what a Roman crucifixion actually was in the ancient world. It was not merely a method of capital punishment. It was a calculated, state-sponsored theatrical display of terrorism. It was designed to strip away all human dignity, to break the psychological will of a conquered people, and to send a chilling, unmistakable message to anyone who dared sympathize with the victim. Standing near a cross was not just an act of emotional mourning. It was an act of profound political treason. You were risking your own freedom, to your own status, and your own body just by being visible in the crowd of mourners. They took these 3 lives, rolled them together, and created a composite sketch of a broken, sexualized sinner. Then, they slapped the name Mary Magdalene on the frame. If you have ever felt the ache of standing by someone when the rest of the world walked away, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the text to uncover the people history tried to erase. So, Mary stays at the foot of the cross. She does not calculate the risk. She does not hide. She follows the violent procession through the narrow, crowded streets of Jerusalem. She stands her ground on the rocky, wind-swept hill of Golgotha. She hears the sickening thud of the mallet striking heavy iron spikes. She smells the sweat and the copper scent of blood mixed with the dry dust of the execution ground, while the hand-picked apostles cower in the shadows. The women anchor the scene. Mary the Tower watches the sky turn unnaturally black in the middle of the afternoon. She hears the final, tearing breath leave his lungs, and even after the centurion confirms the death, even after the wealthy men come to negotiate for the corpse, she does not abandon her post. She tracks the body. She watches them wrap the linen in the fading light. She watches the massive stone grind into place over the entrance of the tomb. The men gave up the moment the heart stopped beating. The story, as far as they were concerned, had violently concluded. Most people assume Mary Magdalene is the Bible's ultimate redemption story of a fallen woman. They assume her legacy is about sexual repentance. But her loyalty did not end at the grave, and her refusal to leave is about to trigger a chain reaction on the first day of the week. The sky over Jerusalem is completely black. The Sabbath is officially over. Mary walks through the dark, narrow streets. She carries heavy clay jars in her hands. She smells the sharp, bitter scent of myrrh and aloes. She feels the cold Sunday wind against her face. Her body aches from the visceral trauma of watching the execution just 36 hours earlier. The men are locked inside a room. The men are hiding from the Romans. But the tower is moving toward the graveyard. She is not anticipating a resurrection. She is anticipating a rotting corpse. The spices are not an act of triumphant faith. They are an act of brutal finality. She reaches the edge of the garden. The eastern horizon is bleeding a pale gray light. The air is entirely still. She looks toward the burial cave. The massive stone is gone. The entrance is a gaping black hole. The Roman guards are missing. The imperial seal is broken. She turns. She runs. She finds Peter and John behind locked doors. She delivers the terrifying news. They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him. The men sprint to the garden.